Hi there, my name's Scott Clark. I'm 40 years old. I've been at work since 4:15 this morning, so she's been a big old day. And here I am being asked by a Christian to do an interview just on diet and nutrition. Just so you know, this is the experience that I have and have had with this throughout the years. Not saying that everyone will agree with the nutrition and the diet that I use, but this is what's worked for me to get me to where I wanted to be. This is information that I researched and studied over bodybuilding, so there's going to be a lot of people that agree and a lot of people that disagree, so but this is what's worked for me. I used to be a bodybuilder probably 10-15 years ago now. Every day's a blessing. I'm lucky to be alive. I had a very terrible car accident, and like I say, I'm lucky to be here, but it helped me a lot heal the information or the knowledge that I had throughout my nutrition and my training to get me to where I am nowadays. A lot can be said about nutrition. I feel you are what you eat, is my famous saying. If you're on a diet, you need to first of all decide what you want out of it. That is the most important, and everyone's unique, everyone is individual. That's what you should be focusing on, is what you want out of your diet. And basically where I would start from, anything that I would give advice for is, if you want to talk about diet, think back to when we were cavemen. Basically, humans are smarter than you could ever imagine, and our brain is actually our own worst enemy. And because it goes back to when we were cavemen, the caveman diet that I used to structure myself on for all my bodybuilding career was basically, you can eat as much protein as you want, meat, vegetables, water is fine, but it's the carbohydrates that will affect you. So basically what I say, what I mean by when I say about our bodies are smarter than what we could know, is because your fat is essentially store. Because your natural caveman instinct is, we never knew when we were going to get our next feed. So you could go for a day or 2 days without eating. So that's why our body and our brain is so smart to think, if there's food there, eat, store. And if you're storing, you've got something to fall back on if you go for a day or two without feed. Like I say, which is back when we were cavemen, we never knew when we were going to get our next feed, and you'd have to hunt or go and gather rather than having it all ready available. So that is why I feel humans have become our own worst enemy when it comes to nutrition, because carbohydrates are so acceptable nowadays, as far as feeding our kids cereal for breakfast. Like I feel the best thing you could eat for breakfast would be eggs, bacon, protein. And like I say, the essential rule that I used to have is, if you're not eating protein, what are you eating? Carbohydrates, sugars, or fats. Now, fats are an essential nutrition. Fats I agree with. Some carbohydrates are okay as long as they sustain your stomach for full for at least 2 hours. And the strategy that I used to have is, by eating every 2 hours, you would speed your metabolism up, and then your body would not store, it would not need to store, because it's gathering all the nutrition that it needs every 2 hours, so that then your body doesn't need to store fat cells. So by speeding up your metabolism, you don't need to store fat, you can burn that fat. Whereas if you slow down your metabolism by having big meals, not often, that's going to slow down your metabolism and have the opposite effect. So I'm a firm believer in eating every 2 hours, a firm believer in eating high protein, low carbs, if any carbs, but also in the same sense, you have to reward yourself, at least not in days, but like 1 or 2 meals during the week. Like I don't drink alcohol. On a Friday or Saturday night, I'd reward myself by having some licorice or some yogurt, for dessert after tea on a Friday or Saturday night. Rather than drinking alcohol, then I would have some licorice or some yogurt, and that would actually, because your diet has been so focused and structured for the 6 days of the week, you're cutting body weight, your body fat, and then once you have your Friday, Saturday night munchies, then you're effectively you're not going any backwards, you're going forwards, because you're gradually, as your 5-day period's going, you're building, and then you have your Saturday, you might drop back to here, but then when you start dieting on your Monday, Tuesday, you're already here. So you're starting off from earlier where you left. So that way you're already evolving and you're one step on your diet, because you've focused on the 5-6 days. And then once you get to here, you're already starting lower than where you were the week before. Diet, nutrition has a huge effect. So also a lot of people say that it should be made at the gym, your body, but I'd strongly disagree. I reckon it's 50% of your results are made from your diet and 50% are made from your training. And a lot of people don't realise this. A lot of people think that they can come to the gym, get fit, get ripped, get lean, but it's not just that simple. I feel, like I say, it's 50% gym, 50% nutrition and diet. Also, the old saying that I used to stick by is work smarter, not harder. But if you work smarter and harder, you're going to get even better results, and for less work as well. The biggest piece of advice that I'd give anyone about diet is read the back of the packet, because if you can read the back of the packet, it will tell you how much protein, fat, carbohydrates, sugars, okay? So essentially, my rule was, if you're not eating protein, you're eating carbohydrates, sugars, fats, okay? Now, in my rule, fats are okay, protein is perfect, because it will sustain your stomach full for that 2-hour interval, whereas carbohydrates won't. That carbohydrates and sugars is your worst enemy, whereas fats is healthy nutrition. Also, reading the back of the packet can teach you a lot about what you're eating, and like I say, if you avoid carbohydrates, you'll be fine, because essentially carbohydrates is the same as eating sugar. It's the bioavailability of it is actually the worst thing you can be eating. So, and let's get this correct, it depends what you want out of your diet, and 9 times out of 10 people want to lose weight. So effectively the only way to do that is to essentially starve yourself. And people say they can starve themselves by not eating, but the strategy that I had is you can starve yourself and not be hungry by eating high protein, low carbohydrates. And if you can remain strong and have energy if you're eating the high protein and the low carb diet, because you still have that energy. And what happens is your metabolism speeds up, because your stomach is trying to break down that protein to chase those carbohydrates. So therefore, if the carbohydrates aren't there, your body is going to start digging into its natural resources and natural stores, which is your fat, to get that energy. So that's why I'm always been a fan of training on an empty stomach, and then a pre-workout to get that energy, and you can shift that weight. And yeah, basically reading the back of the packet can teach you a lot about your diet. Like I say, avoid carbohydrates, avoid sugars, everything else is sweet. If you've got protein, high protein, low carbs, eat every 2 hours, you should never be hungry, and effectively you can starve yourself without being hungry. What I used to do, or what I still do, is when I first get up in the morning, 4:15, I have for breakfast is a protein shake with milk, which is essentially 28 grams of protein and 12 grams of carbohydrates, because it's blue top milk, and essentially that will sustain my stomach full for 2 hours. My second smoko is basically a meal that I'd cooked the night before. So basically for tea, I'll cook up a couple of chicken tenders so that I can have that lunch the next day, which is high protein, no carbohydrates. Afternoon tea will basically be a couple of protein bars, which aren't that good for you because they are high in carbohydrates, but it is high in protein also. But it's okay to eat it at that time of the day, because essentially you've gone for half of the day without carbohydrates. So if you have a protein bar at afternoon tea, that's going to provide you carbohydrates to sustain your energy until you get to tea time, where you again have high protein, low carbohydrates, which at tea time I eat a meal of broccoli with mixed veggies and cauliflower, and basically they are the carbohydrates that I eat, and other than that it's protein, which is basically chicken breast, Kievs or tenders, and essentially that is the ultimate way to have no carbs and high protein. Another healthy alternative to carbohydrates is actually mixed nuts. There's more omega-3s and DHAs in mixed nuts than there is in vegetables and fruit. So actually they go on about 5+ a day, whereas some nuts are actually healthier for you than any vegetables. So mixed bags of nuts, walnuts, cashew nuts, almonds, they are an essential nutrition and they are very, very healthy for you. Also, the ignition warm-up has been another thing that I've been a fan of. Basically the rowing machine is what I use because it is essentially the most active, or activates the most amount of muscle groups in your body out of any other cardio, and the reason I've been a fan of that is because of that. And also I use an ignition style of warming up, so basically I just cruise for about 100-150 metres just to get your form perfect, and once you get your form perfect then I do 150 metres as fast as I can. And you're already warmed up from your slow 150, then you hit that next 150 hard, and then you cruise for 100. And you relax, and you catch your breath, and then you go again, and you give it 200% and see how fast you can go. And then you cruise again for another 100 metres, and then all the way up to 800 metres, and then I just go for it until 1,000 metres. And once you've hit 1,000 metres, then I just cool down, and then after that I have a stretch for either muscle group, whether it's upper body or lower body. The stretching and the warm-up, ignition, I feel not only warms you up the best, but also teaches you a lot about your lifting, and it gives you that brain of ignition. It gives you fuel and fire, so that it's like strength training or fitness training. If you're not going from one extreme to the next, like Jackie Chan would say, you're not going to get any fitter or stronger. So if you do go from one extreme to that extreme, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. And that's been the form that I've used to get me to any of my competitions or anything in my life, basically, whether it's at the gym or whether it's at work. The old saying is, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. Yeah. One extra thing I want to chuck in there is basically I'm very lucky to have known what I know about bodybuilding before my accident, because I was told after my accident and all my surgeries is to not train it, but the research that I did before my accident taught me that any weakness should be strengthened. If you've got a weakness, you should be getting blood to those areas that blood can't normally get to unless you train it. So getting your heart rate up, getting your blood pressure up, gets blood to areas for healing purposes, so that then, like I say, you can get blood to areas that blood would not normally get to by training it, getting your heart rate up, getting your blood pressure up, and shifting more weight, and training those areas actually strengthens those areas and strengthening your weaknesses. So yeah, thanks all for listening. Just so you know, this is the experience that I've had, so if this can help you, I hope it does. And if you ever need any other help, yeah, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to give my information or share my information that I've learnt from myself. One more thing before I go. So just part of human nature, plateauing is our biggest enemy. So basically that means when you get comfortable, or you come to the gym and think, yeah, I did that, and then you think you've done the job, but actually it's your worst enemy. So what you should do is leave your body guessing, so that you go from one extreme to the next, whether it's diet, whether it's training, and then that way you get the best results.